Burden, Part 25. We Continue by J. Ogweno.
She looked beautiful, seated on her bed, albeit she still looked very weak. He was delighted. That day, they had a longer chat and recalled their days. She told Richard that in event that she had died, she would have preferred that he looked after her children. Richard protested and told her that she still had 100 years to live. After all, the doctor had suggested that she could be discharged the following day so that she could recuperate at home. They laughed, and by the time he left, he was so elated. He encouraged the nurse who had just come in to take good care of Lois.
Next day, Richard woke and went to check on Lois's children and see whether they had had adequate house supplies now that their mother was likely to come home. He found that they had just had breakfast and were preparing to go to the hospital to check on their mother. Marlowe, the firstborn, just secured a job before the mother fell ill. Therefore, he was running the house with the little money he was earning. Fortunately, their mother had just finished paying for the house they were living in, so they had no fear of being evicted. Very quickly, they prepared and took a taxi to the hospital. On reaching Lois's room, her bed was empty. The children panicked, but Richard assured them that things would be fine. As they were still wondering what was happening, Lois was wheeled in. She had developed some complications earlier that morning and had been taken to the theater. She came back looking so weak. When she had been lifted onto her bed, she called her children and Richard and started talking to them, telling them how important it was for one to leave a legacy in this world. She shared some portions from the scriptures and she looked much stronger by the hour. At around 12 noon, Joanne took Richard's hand, gave him a long look. Then she took her children's hands and placed them in Richard's. Please be strong, maintain the faith, and more than anything else, please look out for each other. With that, she closed her eyes. Mom! The children cried, Mom! There was no answer. Lois! Richard called her, shaking her shoulders. There was no answer. Richard left to call the doctor, who came in very fast. They were all told to leave the room. After a few minutes, the doctor came and he was smiling. Lois just had a small relapse, but she's now awake. Richard and Lois's children went in to see her in turns. They were relieved. At lunchtime, he decided to go for a snack at the doctor's plaza. Richard persuaded the children to eat. He barely touched his own food. I'm so sorry, we did all we could, the doctor told Richard and the children when they came back to Lois's room. He had just confirmed that she was not breathing anymore. What? Exclaimed Richard. I left her speaking a few minutes ago, he cried. Lois's children and Richard broke down and wept their hearts out. They do not remember for how long they stayed in the waiting room. Finally, Richard called them and after making some arrangements with the hospital, told them to go home, but not before Marlowe called his only remaining uncle, Peter Sidona, who had only appeared in the hospital twice since Lois was admitted a whole month. Uncle Peter insisted on giving his sister a befitting burial at the plot Lois had built for her house in the countryside. Had built her house at the countryside. Richard helped where he could, especially with comforting her children and attending the burial. After a few days, he decided to go back to Nairobi, but the last-born Jolson insisted on going back with him. The decision was not easy on the siblings, but they all agreed it was for the better. When Jolly, as he was popularly referred to, stayed in Nairobi with Richard for 3 months, Richard decided to enroll him in a degree program in journalism at the Technical University. Jolly worked very hard to make his new-found stepfather proud of him. In 4 years' time, he was graduating with a degree. He then applied for a job with Bright Communications and was awaiting response. Meanwhile, Marlowe had completed his course in journalism and went to work in Britain. All Lois's children had adopted Richard's last name, Ibera. Recalling that past gave Richard some strength. His son Jolly, who had been standing beside the car, had decided to go back to the house. Jolly, go and check on your father. He drove in a few minutes ago and he has taken unusually long to come into the house, said the motherly nanny Richard had hired to take care of his house. Richard was startled when he felt a tap on his shoulder. Dad, what is it? Asked the concerned young man. He had never seen this man cry in his entire life. He was shocked. Jolson got into the co-driver's seat again and waited for Richard to come down. Richard ignited the car engine. Jolson inquired where they were. Just for a short ride to clear my head, son. Don't worry, he responded. Thus they drove out of the compound, leaving the nanny in more wonder. Hope boss is okay, she thought. Richard drove to his favorite hotel and invited Jolly to join him in sitting in his quiet place. Son, you and your siblings are now adults. There are things your mother and I never told you, but today I shall tell you. Jolly sat upright, ready to hear the secrets that probably had made this man in front of him separate from his mother. Jolly, before I met your mother, I had a family, a wife, a son, and a daughter. What? Responded Jolly, shocked at that revelation. Yes, son. Your mother and I met when both of us were not doing well emotionally. We had made some wrong choices and were facing the consequences. In my carelessness, I had abandoned my family and let the pleasure of youth overtake me. I would go drinking and partying all night. I neglected my family, even my own mother. That time I had lots of money. I never thought it would get finished. My peers encouraged me on and even challenged me not to listen to the women in my family. He paused. Son, do not be deceived. Peer pressure is real and it can affect anyone. So one day, my former wife, Joanne, decided that she wanted to go and visit her aunt in Mombasa. I took advantage of that opportunity and got rid of her and the children. I changed my telephone number and ran away from home. After a while, I moved to Kisumu town where I met your mother. We lived a very difficult life. I guess you are too young to comprehend. So when your mother, I shall forever respect her memory, found faith in God, she decided to let me go and look for my family. She also led me to consider my ways. I owe my faith in God to her too. That is why we parted. It was not easy, son. I'm sorry, Dad, responded Jolson. So today, something strange happened, Richard continued. I went to church and found there was a wedding. The bride's name resembled that of my daughter, but I did not manage to see her. Then, as I came from town, I met a wedding procession, and the bride resembled a lady whose life I had saved from a road accident a few years ago. I tried to trace them, but lost them at some juncture. That entire scenario brought back the image of my first family and my heart broke. I missed them so badly. Richard wiped his eyes with his handkerchief. For the next 1 hour, father and his stepson could be seen in a heart-to-heart discussion. Finally, they had lunch and went back to the house. Welcome back. What happened? You left in such a hurry? The concerned nanny inquired. Richard told her not to worry, for it was just a small problem he had managed to sort out. That night, as Richard went to sleep, he felt a whole load had been lifted off his shoulder. Chapter 13. Meanwhile, Betcha had enjoyed her wedding day. He had decided to block all negative thoughts and concentrate on the moments. However, for more, join me next time. Bye.